Mr. Koretz, before you get started, I'd like to announce that Ms. Sherry Zamora, you have been approved, and you officially, as of this moment, is a commissioner for the greatest city on the planet. So if we could give Sherry a round of applause. Where are you, Sherry? Mr. Koretz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today it's with the utmost delight that we unite in saluting one of the truly great figures of modern American politics and governance. I'm speaking of my friend and our friend, the Honorable Henry Waxman. And what a great privilege it is to have him here on this very special occasion. Back on January 30th, when the Congress member announced that he wouldn't be seeking a 21st term in Congress, I immediately called him to thank him for the amazing service over all these years and to ask him if we could honor him in City Hall. And I didn't do it only for his sake. Henry's already received countless honors over the years, with a busload more still to come, I'm sure. And besides, he's a very modest gentleman who's not in it for the praise, and in fact would probably rather be somewhere else at this very moment. But I did it for the sake of the people he serves and the nation as a whole. I wanted to ask him here not only for his benefit, but for ours, because Henry Waxman was, is, and will always be a source of great inspiration and a paradigm of great leadership. We can always learn from his shining example. In every aspect of his tremendous career of public service, Henry Waxman has mentored us about how we can shape the world for the better through hard work, wisdom, fairness, idealism, and determination. He's the epitome of good government and principled leadership. He's also been a steadfast champion for a remarkable diversity of crucial causes. My colleagues here by my side will have the pleasure of telling you about his vast array of landmark legislation. I'll simply say that on every issue that I consider to be at the top of my list of vital concerns, environmental protection and climate change, economic justice, human rights, including women's reproductive rights, global democracy and security, public health and well-being in the era of HIV and AIDS, and protection from exposure to secondhand smoke, and on, Henry has been a fearless champion who has changed the world for the better. Of course, he hasn't done it by himself, for he's led and been helped by an amazing staff, some of whom are here today. And hopefully I will get all of them. My apologies if I don't. So I'd like to welcome his district director, Lisa Pinto, his constituent servant, who we've all worked with for many amazing years, his constituent services manager, Rachel Zayden, caseworkers Elisa Lalana and Joey Apodaca, staff assistant Brian Sutter, as well as former staff members Aaron Walensky and Christina Romero, who is here with her young daughter Alyssa. Also here are some of Henry's longtime friends, and hopefully I got them all. Lenore Wax, Sandy Weiner, Erwin Levin, Dr. Steve and Rita Behrens, Evan Kaiser, and my own very dear friend, Chuck Levin, who ran my first city council campaign in 1988. I believe Lindsay Bubar is here, his 2012 campaign manager, and Doug Herman, his 2012 consultant, and also Richard Bloom really wanted to join us, but wasn't able to be here, so his district director, Andrea Kuhn, is here representing him. Let's give all of them a big hand. Oh, and I guess I missed one, David Hertz, who has led Republicans for Waxman. And most importantly of all, his wife and helpmate and traveler with Henry on this amazing journey, Janet Waxman. So let's give another round of applause for the Waxman staff, past and present, friends and family, all the team who has supported Henry in his great work. And now I'd like to ask my esteemed colleague, Councilmember Mike Bonin, to share his thoughts on the career of his friend and mentor, Henry Waxman.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, colleagues. I'm doing something unusual today. I'm wearing a necktie. I should thank Ms. Martinez for it. It was actually her Christmas gift to me. I'm wearing one today because today for me is a very special occasion, because we are saluting a giant who has served my district, a giant who served Los Angeles, and a giant who has made Los Angeles a better place. It's considerably difficult to talk about Henry Waxman without sounding like you're slipping into hyperbole, because just the simple facts are so impressive that it sounds like exaggeration. It sounds like exaggeration if you talk factually and simply about the indelible, the undeniable, and the monumental impact that Henry Waxman has had on all of our lives. He has been one of the most important and influential members of Congress in our lifetimes, and particularly gratifying for me, he has been one of the most important and influential progressives in the history of the United States Congress. Make no mistake, because of Henry Waxman and his work in the United States Congress, the air we breathe and the water we drink and the lives we lead are better, directly because of the legislation that he has pushed and shepherded. He has stood up consistently for universal health insurance, for comprehensive Medicare and Medicaid coverage, for tobacco regulation, AIDS research and treatment, air and water quality standards, pesticide regulations, nursing home quality standards, women's health research, reproductive rights, affordable prescription drugs, and a community's right to know about pollution levels. There has not been a more fierce advocate for the things that matter to our quality of lives and to what matters to neighborhoods in Los Angeles than Henry Waxman. You could not, thank you. I haven't looked at his Wikipedia page in a while, but just the section on the bills he's gotten passed alone probably takes up incredible bandwidth. The Infant Formula Act of 1980, the Orphan Drug Act of 1983, the Drug Price Competition and Patent Term Restoration Act of 1984, the Clean Air Act of 1990, the Ryan White Care Act of 1990, the Food Quality Protection Act of 1996, the State Children's Health Insurance Program of 1997, the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act of 2006, the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act of 2009, and the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010, which some of us have heard of as Obamacare. It's easy to give a list of what someone has done, but let me put it in slightly more human terms. Let me go back in time to in Henry's first few years in Congress. Let's go back in time to 1991, when a generation of my community began to die. Men in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York were appearing with lesions on their skin, were going blind, were suffering from horrific diseases that the human population had never seen before. And nobody was paying any attention. Nobody was paying any attention because back then we were faggots and we were outcasts. Nobody was paying attention because the other victims were prostitutes and were drug users. And nobody cared, except for a few voices. It took 4 or 5 years for the President of the United States to even say the word AIDS. But in 1991, before the term AIDS had been coined, Henry Waxman was holding hearings in Washington, D.C., because he had a position of power and influence. He saw a problem, and he seized an opportunity to try to do something about it. At a time when people were calling for quarantines, Henry was calling for public education. At a time when some people were trying to ban condoms, Henry was calling for more biomedical research. At a time when some people were trying to ban safe-sex comic books, Henry was fighting for more research and trying to save lives. It was an act of uncommon courage. It was an act of incredible foresight. And what's remarkable is if you look at the arc of Henry's career in Congress, it wasn't at all uncommon or uncharacteristic. We are so blessed and so fortunate to have someone who stood up and who cared about everyone and who has made lives better across this city, across this country. Thank you so much, Henry Waxman. We're all indebted to you.
And now I'd like to ask Councilmember Bob Blumenfield to share his insights.
Thank you. Colleagues, friends, we're here today not just to honor Henry Waxman, but to thank him. To thank him for protecting our environment, for safeguarding our health, and so much more. You know, up until the recent redistricting, Henry was my congressman for 10 years. But actually, my history goes back much further. I first met Henry Waxman 23 years ago when I first started working for Howard Berman back in 91 during the Ryan White Act time that Mr. Bonin was talking about. I was working for Howard Berman, his friend and closest ally in the House. Together, the two of them would forge a reputation as two of the most effective legislators ever to serve. But 20 years ago, Henry was already a legend in the body where many struggled to distinguish themselves among a pack of 435. Few, if any, legislators have had so forceful an impact on so broad a cross-section of issues that affect Americans. Few, if any, have of the touchstone pieces of legislation that Henry Waxman has passed over these 40 years, or any of the legislation that has passed over these 40 years, has not had his imprint on it. From the Clean Air Act to the Ryan White Act to the shocking admission by tobacco executives on the record when they said their product is not addictive and harmful to health, to the Affordable Health Care Act that's helping millions, Henry Waxman has had a profound impact on the American political landscape. And when he does it, he oftentimes just makes it look easy. He's not afraid to throw elbows. Henry made an unlikely bid for a junior member to claim the gavel of the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Health and the Environment in 1979 when he was beginning his third term in office. And then 40 years later, he took one of the few members on who had more seniority, Representative John Dingell, who also will be retiring, he took him on for the chairmanship of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, putting himself in a prime position to move key legislation affecting the environment forward. But Henry also understands relationships, the delicate art of bipartisan lawmaking. He reaches across the aisle. He's able to make magic where other folks have failed time and time again. And personally, he has inspired me in so many ways. He's inspired an entire generation of progressive leaders in California, throughout the nation, and I'd say throughout the world. He pushes for what is right, doesn't compromise on his principle. At the same time, he doesn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We in Los Angeles thank Henry Waxman, just as Americans across the nation have Henry to thank for making their lives better throughout his distinguished career. But for me personally, I want to thank you, Henry, for your leadership, for your mentorship, for your friendship over these years. Thank you so much. We're going to miss you in the halls of Congress, and we welcome you to spend more time now in LA, and thank you for all that you've done.
Next, I'd like to ask our City Attorney Mike Feuer to share his great respect and his views on Mr. Waxman.
Thank you, Paul. This is a melancholy moment, I think, for all of us, for all the reasons that our colleagues have so eloquently stated. I first heard of Congressman Waxman from my grandmother. My grandmother Dorothy, who was an active constituent in Henry's district at the very earliest stages of his career, all 4'10" of her, was so proud to be able to advocate for him when he was first running for office, because she had a sense of what Henry Waxman would become. I first had a chance to sit down with him in earnest in 1986 when I was appointed to be the director of Betzetic Legal Services. And from that point forward, I had an opportunity from a distance and sometimes close up to see what it is to be a legend in public service. Henry taught me the most important lesson in politics, and that is, no matter how unstylish it is, always sport a mustache. But there were other lessons too. And the thing that I want to focus on is this. Irrespective of who wins elections to succeed Henry in office now and in the future, there will be no one who can replace him. As a very practical matter, those of us in public service, and even before I was elected when I was running a public interest law firm, we need people in Washington to be our go-to people on the issues that we care about the most. Leaders who can not only provide us advice and counsel, but who can move the levers of power and take a vision and translate it into reality. The council members who have spoken earlier have already delineated very specifically all the accomplishments that we are so proud of. How many elected officials serve because it's a good thing to be in office? How different is Henry Waxman, for whom the importance of public service is not being important. The significance of public service is to be there to stand for something, to accomplish something. In a world where today there is such stagnation in Washington, Congressman Waxman found a way to merge principle and practicality by getting a vision to the finish line. That's why he has been so respected in so many circles, public and private alike. I can't imagine a Congress without Henry Waxman. It's going to be very difficult for us to find that next go-to representative who can be sure that we are able to accomplish on a national level goals that all of us share. But for the moment, let me conclude with this. Henry Waxman is not only a leader of great principle, great integrity, and great effectiveness. He's a person whose values are those that all of us aspire one day to exemplify. What an honor it has been to even stand with him, to work with him. He and Janet are wonderful people. I wish them very well in Henry's next phase in his career. All of us are the lesser for Henry's departure, and all of us in the nation are better for his extraordinary service.
And although she wasn't able to be here, Dianne Feinstein asked that we say a few words on her behalf. And she wrote that Henry Waxman is a giant in the House of Representatives, and his presence will be truly missed. Through 40 years in Congress, he has served his constituents as a true leader in every sense of the word, compassionate, hardworking, and clear-thinking. I've been privileged to work with Henry on many important issues, and I can tell you with certainty that he has served the community with honor and integrity, and always for the right reasons. I congratulate him on his achievements, and I wish him all the best during those well-deserved retirement years. Dianne Feinstein. Mr. President, I would imagine there are probably some members on the queue that would like to say something as well.
And I would like to go to them directly, except I did want to say to the congressman that when Mike Bonin says to you that he's wearing a tie in your honor to pay you respect, in all of the years that I've known him, this is only the third time that I've seen him with the tie. So he was really serious in that. But we're used to you not wearing ties. So with that said, Mr. Tom Labange.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Waxman and Mrs. Waxman and that power of people behind you. Henry, you have a great staff who's been with you for many, many, many years, and also some have left your staff and done other great things. But I want to give a shout out to Rachel and Lisa for their great work, and always the interface. When I was a deputy, John Furrow, that's the first thing. Number two, I want you to have a good fourth quarter. Tom Bradley didn't get a fourth quarter. John Furrow didn't get a fourth quarter. We're going to miss you in Congress, big time. But life is very precious, and your wife and family and all that you want to do now is your time, because you've given so many years in public service. And members, I want to say now, because of this man's effort, we were able to get the law passed that allowed the city of Los Angeles continue the subway out Wilshire Boulevard. Traffic is the #1 thing that irritates. Raise your hand if traffic irritates you in Los Angeles. Look at those hands. There it is right there. And because of his work in Congress, we were able to make sure it was safe, because that's what Mr. Waxman is all about, safety first. And then the fact that Dr. Einstein, who did the report that proved to all that it's safe to deal with the methane issues. Henry, you're a giant. You're a giant for what you've done and what my colleagues spoke about. Your range of service is so wide and caring from the heart and soul. But I just wanted to thank you on behalf of all of my constituents who shared much of your district until they tried to make a surfer out of you. Anyway, good luck and happy, happy retirement. Enjoy the fourth quarter, whatever you do. Henry Waxman.
As only Mr. Labange could do. Mr. Koretz, it's back. I didn't mean to. Okay.
He's a Pathfinder from Fremont High School. Give a Southern Leaguer right there. That's a big. Any other Southern Leaguers here? Go. You're Eastern Leaguer, Gil.
See, Labange, you had your line, you know. Mr. Koretz, back to you. Oh, wait, Mr. Cedillo.
Henry, all I want to do is say thank you. Your years of service and your record has been well stated. But I don't think people really appreciate what it means to put all those years together. All those flights, all those hours and days and months and years away from home, the impact on your family. An incredible public servant you have been, and I just want to say thank you. It was about 20 years ago, representing SEIU, I took a trip to Washington. They asked me to testify on some matter related to health care. And I was very excited. They had it all queued up. They gave me 20 pages of testimony, and I went early and I studied all night, and I was so excited to appear before your committee. I was so excited I got there about 3 hours early and went to the wrong hearing. Those doors of Congress are huge, and they're huge because there's giants like you who work there. I went and grabbed a sandwich and some coffee, and I went in, and they said the testimony had been cut. I wasn't going to speak for 20 minutes. I was going to speak for 2. Now, you can imagine how scary it is for a young man to be in Congress, appearing before a committee, representing SEIU. And I just have to say, you and your staff is always a reflection of the member. You were nothing but a gentleman. And you were very kind, and you were very helpful, and you were very supportive. And it was reflective of your entire tenure. It's why you were so successful. Your record is just extraordinary, and you are, as Labange said, a giant. The work that you've done and the collaboration with your friend Howard Berman is just unattainable for those of us who serve. And so I just finally, one last time, want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Koretz, you have the floor, sir.
Well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the man of the hour, Mr. Henry Waxman.
Well, this is a wonderful honor to have this tribute, and I'm alive to hear it. And I want to thank Paul Koretz, who's actually my city council member. I used to be represented by Mike Feuer in the city council, but I'm well represented by him as a city attorney. I want to thank Bob Blumenfield. He's a friend who goes all the way back to our days in Washington when he was a staffer. I think some of the others here had been staffers as well, as had Mike Bonin. And Mike, thank you for that lovely tribute. All of you for the kind words. I appreciate it. There are other members that are close to me that are represented today, but they didn't call off the session in Sacramento, so those who are still working in Sacramento that didn't take a seat on the city council couldn't be here on this occasion. I have my incredible wife, Janet, with me. What a tribute. My staff, some former members as well as current members on the staff. Lisa Pinto has been the terrific staff director, and the others have been so tuned to making sure that our constituents get the service they need. I've been through 4, maybe 5 redistricting over the years, and one constant has always been that I've always represented a part of Los Angeles City. And I go way back. I was born in Los Angeles. I was born in Boyle Heights. Then I lived out in South Central LA, where I went to Fremont High, moved to West LA when I went to UCLA and UCLA Law School. And I've always represented LA, and LA has always meant an enormous amount to me. And I've always had the great distinction and honor to work with the members of the City Council to do what we could at the federal level in the interests of our constituents, whether it was I don't want to step on an applause line, but whether it was to make sure we had the funds for transportation or the health and environmental protections that we benefit from LA when we pass laws like the Clean Air Act. And the very first hearing on what we later learned was AIDS, and then after that, HIV, we held not in Washington, D.C., but at the Gay and Lesbian Service Center right here in Los Angeles. So I have had the great honor to represent different parts of L.A. I didn't quite expect the Redistricting Commission to move me west because that's the ocean. At one time, they had me move further east, which I had represented in the past. Further north, that was fine. I had represented that. And they took the district even further south, and it was a very, very exciting district to represent in these last couple of years. I have many of my dear friends with me today, and I want to thank them for being here. I know others would have liked to have joined us all, but I think we're going to have another tribute or two before I leave at the end of the year, as I look to the end of 40 years representing the city of L.A. and some of the other cities as well. At one time, West Hollywood, now all the beach cities and different neighborhoods in Los Angeles itself. To have a Henry Waxman Day in the city of Los Angeles on Friday the 13th. Who could ask for anything more than that? My grandparents had a Waxman Day in Kishinev when the pogrom told them they better leave Kishinev. But a welcoming day on Waxman Day here in L.A. is a day to be hearing all these nice things and to working with so many of you. I may not be in Congress after the end of the year, but I'm still going to be involved and working with all of you to make L.A. a better city, a healthier city, one we can all look at with a great deal of pride. Thank you so much.
Here, here.
And I'm going to add one more silly thing. When I ran for the state assembly 14 years ago, I got the endorsement of the LA Weekly. And in their endorsement article, they said that I was notable for my Waxman-esque lack of charisma. Now, when I saw that, I said, that's not fair. Henry has charisma. But clearly, his career has not been made on just his personality, which is he's just a sweet, down-to-earth guy. But it's been made on having a laser focus on the critical issues of our times. And when he gets on an issue, he's like a dog without a bone, and he stays on it until he makes things happen. And he has been the most successful member of Congress in my lifetime and in our generation. And so it's such an honor to have him here to recognize him. Let's give him one more hand. And now I'd like to ask my colleague Mike Bonin to make the official presentation of her certificate.
Oh, yeah. The certificate, that's right. We should note, however, because of the timing of Friday the 13th, Henry's office did choose the date. So apparently they like the 13th of Friday the 13th. And here is an official proclamation on behalf of the City of Los Angeles. The print is extremely tiny because they had to put in some of your greatest hits, and that's quite a bit. And it's signed by every member of this council, the Mayor of Los Angeles, City Attorney, City Controller, thanking you and officially naming today Henry Waxman Day in the City of Los Angeles.